Afternoon everyone, and welcome to our webinar, and thank you for joining us today. I'm delighted to welcome you to the launch of our second report in our What Workers Want series. By way of brief introduction, I'm Akash Marwaha, Managing Director for Hays in Scotland, and I'm joined by Yvonne Anderson, HR Director at Prospero People. After taking you through the key findings from our What Workers Want report, I'll pass you over to Yvonne, who will look at the report from an employer's perspective. Just a reminder that you can type questions at any time during the webinar, and we'll spend a few minutes at the end going over some of these. Before we start with the main presentation, I'd just like to remind you that you can share your feedback and engage with the What Workers Want conversation on social media. Simply follow us on Twitter at Hays News, or connect with us on Facebook or LinkedIn and use the hashtag WhatWorkersWant. Recordings of the webinar will be available shortly on hays.co.uk, and soft copies of the presentation slides will be sent directly to you within the next week. This year, our What Workers Want report provides insights into what makes a successful applicant journey. The findings will help employers understand their strengths and weaknesses throughout the applicant journey and identify where they are at risk of losing talent. To put together the report, we carried out an extensive survey in February 2018, which received over 14,600 responses from candidates and employers across the UK. The survey was completed by professionals from a variety of organisation types and size across the public and private sectors. Our report specifically focuses on what about the applicant experience attracts or detracts someone from applying to or accepting a role across 4 key stages: search, apply, decide and join. The search stage includes the role of brand awareness and employer value proposition, applicant job search preferences, the information included in job adverts, and the ease of finding information about the employer. The apply stage includes applicants' experiences when applying for jobs, the application method and requirements, the time this takes, and the feedback and communication received after applying. The decide stage includes the structure and experience of interviews and screening, interaction with the hiring organisation, interview feedback, compliance process, and the offer process and negotiation. The join stage includes induction and onboarding processes prior to and after joining the hiring organisation, and the detail and length of these processes. We've identified the key factors that determine success at each of these stages of the applicant journey, looking at what applicants believe to be roadblocks throughout. By using the insights from this report, employers can compare their application journey against the expectations and experiences of applicants, identify weakness points and focus attraction strategies and future investment where it matters most, overall giving employers a competitive advantage in the war for talent. In today's intensely competitive market, the challenge isn't just finding prospective candidates, it's keeping them engaged throughout the entire application process to the point of hire. Based on our research, 63% of applicants at one time or another across any of the 4 stages have been deterred from completing their application, with the main contributing factor being a generally poor applicant experience. Therefore, the key message to take away this year is that first impressions matter more today than ever before. Applicants are judging all aspects of the employer and organisation. In addition to having a high level of expectation on how long a process should take and how easy it should be to apply, applicants have certain expectations along each stage of the journey. So employers need to ensure they are pitching these correctly to avoid losing talent. But employers are not necessarily aware of the problems along their own applicant journey. As we can see, there is an overall 10% gap in satisfaction rating between employers and applicants. 65% of employers think they are offering a good or excellent experience. By contrast, only 55% of professionals who applied to a job in the past 2 years rated the applicant experience provided by employers as good or excellent. The remainder of respondents giving a very poor to neutral rating. So there is a clear mismatch here, and employers are largely unaware of just how vital first impressions made during the applicant journey are to a successful hire. Looking at this more closely, the applicant's ratings of quality of experience declines from search through to the final stage, join. Employers, however, do not see much of a difference in the quality of experience they provide across any of the stages of their applicant journey, proven by the quality rating of employers declining by just 5% from search to join. Overall, decide and join are the worst performing stages of the applicant journey, with a 16% and 14% employer versus applicant sentiment mismatch. The biggest applicant versus employer satisfaction gap we see across the whole applicant journey is at the decide stage, which includes the structure and experience of interviews. Employers and applicants are at odds in their assessment of the decide stage. Just 49% of applicants rate their experiences at this stage as good or better, versus 65% of employers, a 16% discrepancy. Overall, 84% of applicants say they have had a negative experience during this stage. Unprepared interviews, 39%, and a lack of interview structure, 38%, are some of the main reasons why applicants are being deterred at interview stage. Poor communication regarding the process is also a main contributor to applicant dissatisfaction. Poor experiences do not end once an applicant starts a new job, and these are impacting on the retention of new starters. Just under half of professionals say they have left at least one job in the first year because it did not match the expectations formed during the application process. The key areas where these new starters' expectations were not met were the job advert itself, 42%, training, 42%. Expectations from management not aligning and overall cultural fit were also key reasons professionals leave a role in the first year. So what do workers want from an application journey? They want employers to be transparent and authentic. They want an efficient process and personalised communication and functionality across every stage. And they want to feel welcomed. Let's take a closer look at each of these points. Today's applicants expect to be able to find out almost everything about an employer before they join. 1 out of 2 professionals won't consider applying if they can't find all the information they require. Applicants want to see how an employer will invest in their personal development, 82%, career plan, 76%, and whether they have a public commitment to equality, diversity and inclusion, 73%, for example. If employers do not make this information easily accessible, then candidates may be deterred right from the outset of the search stage of the applicant journey. When researching prospective employers, candidates are looking for authenticity, so to learn about what it's actually like to work for an organisation. Applicants turn to both current and ex-workers for first-hand insights. Employers looking to recruit are therefore advised to regularly conduct employer brand health checks. 61% of candidates say they have been discouraged from applying to a job after reading negative reviews online about an organisation. Interestingly, however, many employers don't consider review sites and staff testimonials to be an important part of their candidate attraction strategy. In fact, nearly half of employers are in the dark about these reviews, and say they are unsure or unaware of the sentiment of employee feedback online. Applicants are deterred by lengthy and inefficient processes and delays in communication. Our findings reveal a clear mismatch between employer and applicant expectations of how long the application process should take during the apply stage of the journey. 71% of candidates would consider abandoning an online application once it has taken over 15 minutes. However, a substantial number of employers, 40%, have an application process lasting longer than this time frame. Employer websites are providing a disappointing experience for many applicants. 50% of applicants give a neutral to a very poor rating of their experience when applying for a job directly on an employer's website or portal. The majority of those who gave these ratings, 72%, blame a lengthy process with too many requirements as the main contributing factor. While speed of process is important, it is clear communication along the journey that keeps applicants engaged. For example, 57% of applicants say it is important to receive confirmation of moving to the interview stage within a week of applying, but 36% of employers do not meet this expectation. Following the final interview, 58% of applicants expect to hear within 3 days if they have been successful, but a third of employers do not meet this expectation, taking up to a week or more. 25% of applicants have accepted a job verbally, but because of a long wait to receive the formal written offer, they have accepted another job in the meantime. 61% want to receive a written offer within 1 week of the verbal offer. Applicants are more likely to apply to a role if the process is easy and provides personalised functionality and communication. According to our findings, applicants want more personalised functionality than employers currently offer on their career websites or online portals. Desirable features include the ability to set up job alerts, start and stop their application, or create a profile. Unfortunately for applicants, less than a third of employers have these functionalities built into their online portals or career websites. What's more, 41% of employers know their career sites provide a neutral to very poor experience to applicants. But, irrespective of this, over half, 54%, say they are not investing in their career sites functionality as part of their candidate attraction plan for the year ahead. Despite applicants' expectations of a simple and streamlined online process requiring fewer touch points with an employer, our research also shows that applicants still want the option for personal interaction as part of the process. Over two-thirds, 69% of applicants say it is important to them to have a contact person who can provide status updates on their individual application during the apply stage. 77% say this is important during the decide stage and 89% during the join stage. The absence of such a contact person can have a negative impact on the process overall. For example, of those applicants who say they have had a bad experience with an employer's career website, 29% attribute this to not having a contact person available during the apply process. Employer feedback is also highly valued, but not always provided. Over 3/4 of applicants say employers are not good at giving feedback after an application was rejected, while 66% say employers do not provide sufficient feedback following an interview, which applicants want to hear, regardless of the outcome. Finally, the human element is still so important. Applicants are judging all aspects of the journey and an unwelcoming first impression can be detrimental, from the way they are greeted at reception to experiencing the office environment. Applicants are assessing all interactions with a potential employer. If initial first impressions are negative or unwelcoming, employers run the risk of losing out on talent. Nearly half of applicants say they have been deterred from pursuing a role further due to a negative first impression of the organisation, while 22% have almost been deterred. 64% put this down to an unwelcoming environment and 44% due to unwelcoming staff in particular. Almost two-thirds of applicants want to meet their direct reports during the interview stage. Only 13% of employers offer this opportunity. 59% of applicants want to work with a recruitment consultant as part of the interview process. In addition, 46% want to meet with potential colleagues as part of the interview process. However, the welcoming process shouldn't stop once the job has been accepted. Once they have joined the organisation, new staff say the most important part of their induction is to spend time with the team, 84%. Yet only 66% of employers prioritise this as a standard part of the induction process. Failure to conduct a thorough and welcoming induction process may lead to loss of the new hire, with a third of those who have left an organisation in the first 12 months saying it was because they weren't a good cultural fit. This is so important when you consider that 63% of candidates say the people and culture of an organisation is the single most important consideration when deciding to apply or not. So to sum up, a good applicant journey is key to attraction. However, our research has found that candidates are being deterred from applying due to poor experiences along the applicant journey. They encounter a few common roadblocks, including meeting with unprepared interviewers. 47% of applicants have been deterred due to a lack of preparation by the interviewer. Negative employee reviews. 61% of candidates have been discouraged from applying to an organisation from negative employee reviews. Online applications taking longer than 15 minutes. 45% of candidates would be deterred from an online application if it took over 15 minutes to complete. Receptionists or staff that give a negative first impression. Nearly half, 48%, of candidates have been deterred from a role due to a first impression of the organisation, of whom 44% say this is because the receptionist or staff were unwelcoming. Our recommendations include: speed up the process. As a first step, determine how long it takes to complete each stage of your application journey, looking one by one at specific components, such as the time it takes to submit an online application or to respond to applicants after interviews. Using this report, in discussion with your recruitment consultant, benchmark your times against the expectations of candidates to identify where your process may be falling short of expectations. As a second step, review the application requirements for applicants. For example, are you asking for information that is either unnecessary or could be provided at a later stage, thereby speeding up key points along the journey? Finally, hiring managers and HR teams should work together to create a standard protocol for interviews and applicant communication. Setting expectations around an acceptable number of interviews and agreed timeframes to provide feedback or updates to applicants will help your organisation overall deliver a better, more consistent experience. When reviewing your processes, don't forget to review not only the time it takes to complete the process, but also what communication is going to the applicant at each interval. Ensure your process is streamlined and efficient and keeps the applicant engaged at each and every step. 2. Invest in the online experience of applicants. While you may not be in a position to invest heavily in the capabilities of your career website or portal, there are some basic candidate expectations that must be met. First, ensure your website or portal is mobile optimized. Secondly, provide the ability for applicants to start and stop their application and to update their profiles, edit their CV, and upload additional profiles. Finally, if your online portal or site requires multiple steps, ensure it's clear to the applicant throughout the process, where they are in the process and how long it will take. Overall, this should better help retain applicants until the end of the process of submitting their application. It is important to note, however, that these basic functionalities will only deliver an average experience to the candidate as a result of the advanced options that the likes of recruitment agencies or job boards offer. Given the importance of the online experience to candidate attraction and the cost implications in creating an optimal solution, consider working with a partner, such as Hayes, that can provide these important tools, such as more advanced online portals and applicant tracking systems. Create a structured interview process. Aim to create a more standardised interview process across your organisation, starting by auditing your hiring managers' current interview processes. View elements including interview structures, questioning techniques, the length and number of interviews hiring managers require. Consider using a third party such as Hayes Assessment and Development to develop and support consistent assessment processes. Consider also investing in training and support for interviewers, improving your hiring manager's overall interviewing and questioning techniques. As you look to create an organisation-wide standard, be mindful, however, of the nuances and requirements that pertain to different specialist groups. Consider consulting with an expert to help you understand what techniques are best suited for different types of roles and seniority levels. Further training of hiring managers may be required if they're responsible for hiring for a multitude of specialist areas. Make employee reviews part of your attraction strategy. The people and culture of an organisation is the most important consideration for candidates when assessing whether to apply for a new role or not. To find out if the culture being promoted by the employer is authentic, applicants are looking to employer review sites for an honest answer. So it's essential to understand what the current sentiment is about your employer brand online. Conduct an employer brand health assessment by analysing employer review sites and conducting social media listening exercises. If the assessment is unfavourable, consider building a strategy that encourages current employees to share positive comments about their experiences, while addressing negative feedback by dispelling misconceptions and demonstrating the changes or improvements you are making. Finally, put in place a process to consistently track employer reviews and leverage the insights for your employee value proposition marketing programs. Test your journey. Like any good product, user testing of the applicant journey is key. People, time and processes are the components that have the most influence on whether an applicant could be deterred from completing their application or accepting a role. Do you know what it's like to be a new person walking into your office or workspace? Are your staff welcoming to newcomers? Do you know what people find when they search for your organisation as an employer? Do you know how difficult it is or isn't to apply to a job on your site? You need to be consistently reviewing your process end to end. This report proves first impressions really matter. So audit, assess and refine yours to present your organisation consistently in the best possible light to prospective candidates. So now you've heard what makes the ideal applicant journey, How do you go about benchmarking your candidate experience? We've developed an online assessment tool to help. The Hays Candidate Journey Diagnostic is an online tool to help organisations improve their candidate experience. Our interactive tool allows you to evaluate how strong your candidate experience is against industry-leading best practice across 6 key assessment stages. Based on your self-assessment and specific goals, the tool automatically provides a rating against your answers and creates a personalised report of recommendations on how to make your candidate experience to the next level. Your bespoke report will benchmark your candidate experience score to help identify what makes a winning candidate experience, how to take your candidate experience to the next level, areas of priority, quick wins, and ideas for continuous improvement. Calculate your candidate experience score and discover how to attract the right talent better, faster, and more cost effectively. Access the tool on hays.co.uk/candidate-experience and start making the improvements you need to achieve a winning candidate experience. Thank you for listening. I will now pass you on to Yvonne.
Thank you, Akash. Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to participate in this webinar this afternoon. I have a few slides giving my view based on my thoughts from the findings of the survey and hopefully giving some food for thought and recommendations which I hope you'll find beneficial from an employer's point of view. Thought it would be useful to give my background and experience. I'm a fellow of the CIPD with over 20 years experience in HR and organisational development. All of my HR roles were with these organisations when they were either newly established or growing rapidly. And most recently, I've spent 10 years as the People and Organisational Director at Campbell Dallas, and I now run my own business, Prospero People, offering people and organisational support and strategy to organisations from a variety of sectors. As a conservative guess, I reckon I've interviewed over 3,000 candidates in my career. Much of the recruitment in my early career was high volume, and over the years I've supported recruitment at all levels up to CEO and partner. My own thoughts on recruitment is that it's so much more than just filling a vacancy, and this is an idea reflected by the CIPD. That effective recruitment is not just about filling an immediate vacancy, but about having an impact on longer-term issues such as future skills development, organisational performance, and employer brand. It should never be just a tick box or an activity that interferes with a day job. It's too important to not take seriously and give some time and attention to. We know from the survey what workers want, but how can employers deliver this and also get what they need in return? To consider this, we also need to look at it in the wider context of the future world of work. The war on talent is here and going to get worse, but what does that actually mean? The facts are that on current trends, according to the UK Commission for Employment and Skills, the UK workforce in 2030 will be multi-generational, older, more international and more female. Technology will be pervasive, jobs more fluid, and the global labour market highly competitive. The increasing desire for work-life balance will continue. Over the next decade, the number of economically active people aged 65 and over is projected to increase by 1/3. There are currently over 1.3 billion virtual workers globally, and that's set to increase. And there are an increasing number of first-class graduates in the job market. In January 2018, the Times reported that almost 3/4 of services businesses are struggling to make the hires they need. Skills shortages were reaching critical levels in the last quarter of 2017, putting future growth at risk. UK unemployment is at a 42-year low, making it harder to fill jobs. Continuous training and development is seen as a key mitigator. There are no longer jobs for life, and both jobs and businesses will need to continuously change and adapt to their environments. Individuals will take some of this continuous skills development responsibility themselves, but employers will also be chosen based on what training and development opportunities they give. Employers also need to be able to think outside the box in this war on talent. We can't just battle on waiting to recruit that perfect person when perhaps you could get someone with the right skills and attitude and then give them the knowledge through training. The global workforce is uncertain of the labour market following Brexit, perhaps limiting our candidate pool even further now and in the future. Candidates are more likely to be in a job when they apply to you. You can no longer sit back and get them to justify why they want to work for you. It's a two-way conversation, and recruiter skills of persuasion and influence may be called on more. Your HR teams may already understand this, but do your recruiting managers and senior leaders? Do your senior leaders and managers understand how important that two-way conversation is? Candidates of all ages are more certain of what they want from an employer, and being in line with their values is often reported as top of the list. They want to feel respected and welcomed. For example, do you tackle managers and senior leaders who still do not follow a proper interview process or ask inappropriate questions? Candidates will simply go elsewhere while telling others all about their experience at your old-fashioned discriminatory organisation. For the SMEs amongst us, younger candidates tend to favour businesses that offer flexible working and a friendlier working culture. This is seen by many as more prevalent in smaller companies. So make sure you tell people if you have this kind of culture, and if you don't, then you're missing a trick. Criticism on Gen X is too generalised and unfair in my opinion. All ages and types of employees are looking for a better working-life balance and an employer whose values fit with their own. The increasing number of workers in the over 65 range will know exactly what kind of employer they want to work for, what kind of work they want to do, and working-life balance will be just as important to them. Perhaps taking all that information into account, it's a good time to reflect on your own recruitment practices as the report has indicated, perhaps by asking a few questions. Is recruitment seen as an interference to the day job? Are you struggling to fill vacancies? Are offers being rejected? And are new employees not staying around? When did your recruitment process last change? Do your managers just turn up with 5 minutes before meeting a candidate with a CV, and that's in a good scenario, with no preparation and just wing it? Do you assess for skills needed by adding different forms of assessment rather than just an interview? Do you assess for potential rather than just asking about years' experience and past employers? Has your process changed to reflect the changing market? For example, how many applicants can apply to your organisation via their phone? And what is the attitude to this kind of application from your recruiting teams and managers? 2016 research shows that 20% of millennials are now mobile only. What's your social media presence and how is your brand portrayed externally? What will potential candidates find out about you by Googling your name and your company name? When were recruiting managers last trained or updated on recruitment skills and knowledge, particularly in this new world of work? Are they a positive reflection of your brand and culture? Are they confident in assessing candidates and aware of their own biases, allowing them to make quick decisions? Are marketing involved in recruitment activities? Your recruitment activity should always reflect the brand. Does your hiring process use data to help predict success? Who is successful in your organisation currently and why? Use this objective data to help predict future success wherever possible. And by doing this, you minimise bias and increase objectivity in the process. As an employer, my recommendations following the survey results would be firstly, review your process. Ask the questions I've just asked. Gather feedback from those who've been through your process. Get someone to look at your process and brand objectively. Get some feedback from those who have rejected any offers from an independent party if possible. And get feedback from agencies you engage with. How are you perceived in comparison with your competition, for example? How are your interviewers coming across to candidates? Put in the work at the start of any recruitment. See it as a project and project manage it properly. Gather all the stakeholders together at the start. What's the job? Has the spec changed? Is there any feedback from exit interviews from people that did the job? Feedback from colleagues or managers? What training and progression will be offered? It's too easy to not step back when you're on a continuous treadmill of filling the same vacancy over and over. Get everyone on board, establish timetables and actions required at each stage. Confirming the need for speedy and good decision making is crucial, so get some documentation that makes that decision making as easy and objective as possible. All stages in recruitment should be necessary and add value. Persuading a candidate to join you may be difficult if there's a 7-stage process where they have to jump through unnecessary hoops for you. Also, is this giving the correct impression of your organisation where decision making is low and bureaucracy is high? It's 6 months in and there's no good candidate. Is it you? Is it the job? Are there even these people out there? Consider growing your own talent, assessing for skills and potential. Tell your staff that you're recruiting. They can refer or at least know about the vacancy should they be asked by external contacts. If you're working with an agency, use them as a partner. Spend the time to tell them about your culture and what you're looking for, and you'll get a better fit of candidates. They are your external representatives and potentially speaking to many candidates about different roles. Often they will be the ones giving opinions on you as an employer versus your competitor. I was told recently that an audit candidate had a choice of 7 organisations to interview with. It was them that shortlisted those organisations to 4, and they were offered a position at all 4. Their decision is not all about who offers the highest salary. Make it personal. Many candidates, especially senior ones, will want to speak to someone confidentially and establish a connection and suss out the job before applying. Make sure it's an appropriate person. They may need persuaded or are looking for what the business feels like during that initial call. Give a name of a contact in HR rather than just the HR team. Make it personal. Your internal recruiters, interviewers are selling the job and the company. They need to know the big picture. What's the vision? What's the story? Why should someone work here? Help them to be comfortable interviewing and in their decision making. I've heard too many stories where interviewers just spoke at the candidate. Teach them good listening and questioning skills. And most importantly, make a timely decision. This gives you the biggest competitive advantage. It flatters the successful candidate, it keeps their excitement high. Make the offer, get the paperwork out. Make sure your processes reflect your culture. If you say you are fast-paced and less bureaucratic than others, then demonstrate this in your offer process. A quick decision made with energy and excitement and personalised allows you to continue the engagement process before the person even starts. Tell them how you see them fitting in, making a difference and contributing. Tell them how you will help them settle in through a well-organised induction process that takes into account what you've learned about them during the recruitment process. Be respectful. It's a small world out there. What message do you want those who were unsuccessful to take back to the market? They are more likely to tell a bad story than a good, and it's often done publicly now. Just the other day, someone posted their thanks but no thanks email on LinkedIn, where the employer's mail merge had not worked, and the email started off, "Dear, first name, comma, last name." For those who are unsuccessful, leave them with a great impression of you and your organisation and an interest in any future vacancies. Use your candidate database well in future and go back to those who didn't make it this time round. And finally, don't forget that the induction process is just as important as the hiring process. As Akash has mentioned, the number of employees leaving positions within the first 12 months is increasing. Other employers know it's a good time to watch out for those who are unsettled, and ex-employers can easily tempt them back if things are not going well or if first impressions are not good. Be ready for them to start. It's not rocket science, but it happens so often, even with a 3-month notice period to get ready. Make sure you are ready for them to start. What do you want reception to say? Sorry, who are you? Or welcome to the company, John. IT, facilities, etc. should all be on board with how crucial that first impression is. Adjust and tailor your process for the individual. Write a personalised plan for their first few weeks and give them someone who can answer all their initial questions. And check in with them regularly, get some feedback on your recruitment and induction process, and continually make adjustments. Thank you. I hope you found that interesting. I'm also happy to continue the conversation via LinkedIn.
Thank you, Yvonne. And thank you to those that have already submitted some questions. I think we've got 4 or 5. I'll open the line to any further questions, and as a reminder, if you have a question, you can use the Q&A box in the top right hand of your screen. So I'll start answering the ones we've got, and obviously if you've got any more, just submit them as we go along. One of the questions that we've got here is, what about SMEs who can't afford expensive recruitment tools and online applications? Okay. I think that the application process, or the apply stage, is only one of the 4 sort of stages that we've focused on in the report, and we understand the challenges for a lot of companies in terms of having the capital and the money to be able to invest in that type of technology. So I think organisations that are in that space really need to focus on the search element, the decide element, and the join element. So, from a search perspective, what can you do to raise brand awareness? From a people and culture perspective, how do you use social media? How do you use employee and employer review sites? What does the internet say about you as an employer? I think the decide stage and join stage is where SMEs have a real opportunity, against some of the larger organisations, where you can make decisions really quickly. You can generate offers really quickly. You can induct people in a much smoother environment and a smoother way. So there are opportunities. It's not only about the technology. There are 3 other stages that we talked about. So I think that there is an opportunity for SMEs in some of those other areas to really attract the right type of candidates and keep them engaged throughout the process. And of course, you can use a recruitment company if that's what you wish to use, right? Because ultimately they have the technology to maybe help support and you as an organisation, but also to raise your brand awareness out there in the marketplace. Okay. Yvonne, I've got a question for you, specifically asked for you by name. Okay, so what's the best way for HR to get senior managers engaged in recruitment?
For me, it's the education piece. It goes back to, it's not just a tick box exercise. Someone left, we need to replace them. So it's about educating them on how crucial this person is or could be to the future organisation. And also giving them some training. There's lots of people who have ended up in a manager position, recruiting and just doing what they think feels right, with no training in how to question appropriately or to get the best out of a candidate. So for me, it's education and training, and if there is HR in the organisation, then really supporting and coaching that manager. Okay,
thanks, Yvonne. Next question that we've got is, with feedback being so important to professionals, is it okay to give negative feedback to candidates? Okay, I can't remember the exact statistics, but we talked in the survey about candidates really crave feedback, and at present, the majority, I think it was about 71% of clients or employers are poor in providing feedback. Most managers avoid giving feedback to unsuccessful applicants in the hiring process, and our research obviously shows that communication and feedback is of paramount importance. The key in all of this is to give feedback in a timely fashion and give it constructively. to unsuccessful applicants, to ensure that they still have a positive experience throughout the process and they're left with a very positive impression of the organisation, because ultimately, Yvonne's talked about it in her presentation. There's a number of ways now that potential employees or applicants can publicise their negative views or their negative impressions. So it's important that throughout the process that the candidate, whether they have been successful or unsuccessful, are treated with and are left with a positive impression. And that's really, really important. So feedback is critical, whether it's positive or negative feedback. Okay.
And I also just join in on that one by making sure that you offer feedback. So if it's an email saying that they've been unsuccessful, then actually giving them the opportunity to talk through their application. I'm amazed actually that by the number of people who don't phone and ask for feedback, but probably expect the organisation to give them some feedback. And I think possibly the survey result is a disappointment that the organisation has not proactively given feedback, but that is quite often not the case. It's up to the individual to ask for it.
Okay. And another question that we've got, what is the best way to ensure that our employee reviews paint a fair picture of our organisation? We talked quite a bit about that in the actual presentation, but our research has shown that the people and culture of an organisation is the most important consideration when candidates are looking or making a decision on whether to apply or not. And obviously, most candidates are now looking online to review sites. We have that challenge ourselves to understand the current sentiment of existing and past employees. I do a number of interviews, and when I ask why an individual's applied to us, it's constantly that we saw some reviews in Glassdoor, so it's becoming more and more paramount in the marketplace. So, in my opinion, employers need to take ownership of these sites, and they need to ensure that they're conducting audits, and we talked about that in the brand audits, to understand what online employee reviews look like for their organisation. And have a clear understanding of what has been said about their organisation. And it's also important that if those reviews are negative or untrue, that they're addressed, and you're capable of demonstrating any changes or improvements you're making to your organisation as a direct result of those reviews. It's also worthwhile having HR or market representatives from your business involved to oversee these channels, so they can support you in terms of tracking online reviews and where appropriate ensure the reviews are responded to. Okay. I don't have any more questions. I think we've got 4 in total. Okay, we'll move on. Okay, look, I hope you found today's session a useful insight into what applicants want from employers and how you can improve your applicant journey to secure the best talent. If you'd like to request a copy of the report, please speak to your usual contact or complete the form on our webpage. We'd be delighted to provide you with further consultancy and advice on this topic. Of course, if you have any further questions, then please feel free to contact myself or Yvonne directly, and we'll be happy to pick them up. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.